bit. Okay, there we go. So welcome everybody on YouTube for Clear Vision Wednesday. I am super excited today about a special guest I have. Before we get going, I'm Claudia Muehlenweg. If you don't know me, I am the creator of the Naturally Clear Vision Method. I've been a holistic vision teacher, Bates Method teacher for over a decade. And I have with me today another Bates Method teacher, and that's what I'm so excited about. And we all have different experiences and different trainings. And today's session is called How Your Personality Influences Your Eyesight and How to Change That with Dr. Ainhoa de Federico. And let me highlight your video, Ainhoa, so that everybody can see you as well. Hold on, pin the video. So, oops, now my own is gone. There you are. Oops, you're very dark. Basically, I wanted to introduce you. You are a professor at the University of Toulouse, and you've been teaching this as a research position as well. So you're not just a Bates Method teacher, but you're basically a professor and a researcher. So do you want to share a little bit more about yourself?
Yes, can you hear me? Because my Zoom is doing strange things. Like I see that my video stopped, and then when I try to put it again, it's super dark. I don't know, there's something, and the sound comes a bit strange. There.
We can hear you. Okay, now we can see you in bright colors. Let me add you in here. So there you go. Now we can see you perfectly fine. All right. Welcome.
Well, yeah, thank you, Claudia, for inviting me into this space with you, and thank you for your introduction. And yes, you mentioned that I am a researcher and professor at the University of Toulouse in the south of France, where I am currently the head of the Masters in Health Education, where I also teach natural vision improvement. It's one of the lessons that students receive. And natural vision improvement has been my topic of research from within sociology, which is the discipline that I am a doctor in, for a number of years now. It's not how I started. I know you were asking me about if my PhD was about it. And actually at that time, no, it came a bit later. But now it's been a number of years that I've been doing research on natural vision improvement. I am a natural vision teacher as you. So I combine this double perspective. On the one hand, I work with people, with groups, helping them improve their vision naturally. And at the same time, I also have this other meta look on the process and on what we're doing, keeping myself as much as possible up to date, reading articles and books, and then carrying our own research with our own methodology and publishing about it now and then. At the moment, I'm preparing three chapters for different books that are going to appear, talking about this point of view from clinical sociology, experiential integrative clinical sociology on natural vision improvement topics. Voila, was this what you expected?
No, this was super interesting, and I always ask everybody, all my guests, and like, how did you end up getting into this vision improvement stuff? Because like you said, your PhD was in sociology, but how did you get into this whole natural vision improvement? And I know we don't want to spend a lot of time on your story, but just kind of explain a little bit to our viewers, like how you got into this.
Okay, so there's a couple of phases for me. I was born having a very strong myopia, amblyopia, and strabismus. So I looked like this. And so with one eye, my brain wasn't considering the information of that eye, and the other one was very myopic. And coming from a family of doctors, I had the chance that my grandfather, a neurosurgeon that was very known and famous in Spain at the time, he knew all the good specialists in the country. So he took my parents with an ophthalmologist who was aware of natural vision improvement, and she immediately suggested practices and things to do that my parents did with me. So by the time I was 1 year old, I saw perfectly. Everything had disappeared. So my experience of natural vision improvement is one of my origin stories. It's one of those stories that my parents tell me at every birthday, and you were born like this and blah, blah, blah. So I've always known about it in a way, but wasn't always interested in it. And then when I was 23, I had an episode of having myopia, and astigmatism one day and double vision. One day I woke up and saw very blurry and double, and the day before I saw perfectly well. And so I had to go through several doctors that first diagnosed me to wear glasses. And I was like, but why? Yesterday I saw perfectly and today I don't. So why would I have to? What's the cause? And if we find the cause, maybe we can solve it. So I was more stubborn than the first diagnosed that prescribed me glasses for life and found the solution. And within 7 days, I was back to my normal vision again, my natural perfect vision. So I have a very strong identity of me as someone who sees very well, who sees clearly, because I have it since almost like I was 1 year old. So, and then again, so I learned in the process of doing this, but still I solved my own problem. I wasn't necessarily interested about everybody else's. The thing that happened the second time was that actually, that's what the second doctor found. I had developed, sinusitis. I had an infection. And so because the sinuses were inflamed, they were exerting pressure on the eye globe, and that was creating the myopia and the astigmatism and the double vision. So then I learned that when there's something making pressure on the eye globe, then the vision troubles start. And I remember having thought at the time, okay, so now I found the solution and I got back to normal, but how many people may there be out there who, for some reason, whatever, they have tension in the eyeball, and if they go to the first doctor that tells them to wear glasses, like it happened for me, maybe they keep wearing glasses all their life when it was not necessary. So I remember having thought that, but my problem was solved. I had other projects. I went on with my life, et voila. And then when I was in my early 30s, so I was already a tenured professor at the university. And so, you know, researchers, we have to read a lot and we work on the computers a lot. So there was a lot of, my eyes were very demanded by my work. And there was some time when I noticed that I was having trouble to read the papers. I was evaluating for a scientific journal. And also when I was in the public transportation, I couldn't see the names of the stops and things. And I remember that my colleagues were like, oh, now finally, you're also going to wear glasses implicitly and fully be one of us, because we all wear glasses but you. And I remember thinking, why? I mean, if I can still once more for the third time get back to a good vision and not have to wear glasses, I'll be happy to do that. So at the time, I was already interested in psychosomatic approaches to health and well-being. I was studying a general model that had a set of hypotheses on how, when symptoms appear in your body, they are the indication of tension in your consciousness or emotions that haven't been handled well in relation with something that has happened in your life, obviously. I had been studying this model for a few years, maybe 4 or 5, and it had been very successful with other things like back problems and allergies to dairy products. So I had been able to get rid of all those symptoms. Was using it with other people. It was being successful. So when I had this problem in my early 30s again, I thought, okay, why don't I apply these tools once more, but with a different angle, because the first time it was relaxation and exercises that got me into clearer vision again. The second time it was antibiotics. And so I thought, okay, this third time, maybe I can use these tools of self-discovery and self-knowledge. And yeah, we could even call it sometimes spiritual development, and see if they allow me to see clearly again, because I know that it is possible. And I gave myself a time frame of 2 months to apply these tools to myself. And if they would work within 2 months, end of the story. And if within 2 months I would still have vision problems, well, then maybe I would consider wearing glasses for the first time in my life. And so first step was to go to the ophthalmologist to have a diagnosis again on what had happened. And the diagnosis was that of presbyopia and astigmatism. So I've had like 6 eye symptoms throughout my life. And the last 2 were presbyopia and astigmatism. First thing that surprised me was to have developed presbyopia at age 34. I felt like if 20 years had fallen on my shoulders at once, because, well, we are told statistically that it's normal to get presbyopia after 40. 20 years ago, it was after 50. So in 20 years, we have lost a decade of quality of vision as a society. But getting it at 34, I was thinking, oh my God, what am I doing so wrong that I'm getting this symptom even much earlier than what is statistically normal or standard or frequent? And so this was the first diagnosis, and the other was astigmatism. I went to my book of this psychosomatic model to see what was the meaning or the message or the metaphor of these symptoms. And it was very eye-opening. I mean, it really was a wake-up call. Basically, we'll maybe go into some of the details of what these symptoms mean, because probably people here may be interested. So presbyopia was talking about you're bored with your life. You look at life thinking that the best of your life is behind and not in front of you. And I thought, oh my God, at any age, it would be a dramatic thing, but at age 34, like you're really in the middle of probably the development. So I cannot allow this. And the other about astigmatism was you have betrayed yourself. You are not following your true values. And for me, reading that was as if I had get slaps on my face and I had to reconsider what I was doing with my life. And I had to admit that being an academic and doing scientific research, in a way, this was my father's dream. It was my father's project. So in a way, I was the good daughter that was fulfilling dad's dreams, but at some point in time, it was not really fun for me anymore, even though I was an awarded researcher. And I had like 2 prizes for my PhD, and I was at the head of the editorial board of a very renowned international journal in sociology. So I had all the external recognition of being very good at what I did, but inside it was not satisfying for my heart, for my soul, for my being anymore. And the astigmatism was saying, well, the combination was saying that. So, okay, once I looked at myself and had that serious conversation with myself and admitted that the symptoms were right, I was bored with scientific research, and being just a researcher was not what I really wanted to do. Well, then what? So I thought, okay, what does really make my heart sing? So it's actually supporting other people to have a better health and a better quality of life, like health and well-being. So how can I combine what I'm doing at the moment at the university and transition into something that will be more interesting for me, more fulfilling? And so I kept working at the university, but now I'm not doing basic research. I'm doing applied research that can serve people. That's the clinical sociology. And so over the years, I've been more and more interested with natural vision improvement. I started with these other models of healing, and as time went on, it became more and more obvious that that what I want to bring into the world, or share as you do and other colleagues and friends do, is this opportunity to see clearly with your own eyes, and all the methods and all the tools and techniques that there are to support that process. The final chapter, and then we'll go into other things, but maybe this also gives an idea of why this approach specifically of emotions and personality is so interesting for me. The last chapter was actually a kind of dramatic one, and it happened in 2012. So we were told by the Mayans that it was the end of the world. And in a way, for me, it was the end of a certain world and the beginning of a different world. And in a couple words, what happened was that, that was a big shift in my life. Almost approaching age 40, I managed to get pregnant for the first time in my life, and the last time. And when I was pregnant, at some point in time, we knew that the baby was probably going to be blind. And this created a very difficult moment with a father who didn't want to keep the baby, and I who wanted to keep the baby. So we separated, and in the end, the baby was not born naturally. And so two things happened at that moment. One was that I thought I would be a mother, and in the end, I am not. So what am I going to do with all the love that I have inside to share? If I'm not going to give it to my baby, then how can I make myself also of service? That was a very, very big, important moment. And the other was, well, if the baby would have been born, she would have been blind. So working with eyesight and vision is what's most meaningful for me at the moment. So I couldn't help my daughter who was not born. So maybe I can help other people with what I've learned in the process, in my own process, and well, in this unfortunate chapter. So going back to research, in my own experience, the first time I improved my eyesight was through relaxation and exercises, and I would identify that as a physical level of eyesight improvement. The second time it was through antibiotics. So, well, it was some chemical thing inside of me that changed something. And the third time I improved my vision was through working on my own emotions. So at some point in time, I wondered, okay, I've been able to improve my own eyesight with these 3 different levels. Maybe there are others. And that's when I started looking more directly into the field, the research field on natural vision improvement. So I had improved my eyesight 3 times without even knowing about the existence of Dr. Bates. And then I started looking into other people's works. And of course, I couldn't but notice that Bates was the pioneer and a very central figure. And so I got training in the Bates method and in the Brofman method. Anyway, I've explored different approaches and read. And in a way, I reorganized the information in a way that would make sense for me, like probably we all do. And it depends on our own experiences, how we organize it. And so for me, I established a model that I found the more clear or meaningful or easy to share with other people around me in a way that they could understand, talking about different levels or different angles to improve eyesight and vision. And of course, they're interrelated. I mean, it's not completely possible to separate the ones from the others. But nowadays, I talk about improving your vision at the physical level with relaxation and exercises, movements, etc. The second level is the chemical, nutritional level. So how to not intoxicate yourself, how to detox, how to eat well to see better. The third level is the emotional. How you can notice that, and we'll talk about this a bit more because this has been part of my scientific research at the university, how vision problems or vision troubles don't start at any random given time in life. 80% of the time or more, they start at a moment where we're living some stressful situation. And the decrease of eyesight is actually an adaptive response to the environment to handle the stress or the discomfort or the difficulties. So we can see what are the meanings and the symbols and the metaphors behind the eye symptoms. And when we find what was the root cause emotionally, what was it, this adaptive response that was required at the time to survive or to be better, but that implied having a decrease of your eyesight or your vision. When we get back to that point, there's some twist or click or change that we can do in our consciousness to release that tension. And the effect of that is increased vision and increased clarity, not just physically, literally towards the outside, but also increased clarity inside, towards the inside. So that for me is probably the key level in my experience or in my preference. Of course, I know all the others work as well, but that's the one I really like working with. And of course, we can also work to improve our eyesight and our vision at the mental level. There's so many things that we can do to retrain our brain to see more and to see better. Seeing is a process that is 80 to 90% a mental or cerebral process, and only 10 to 20% depending on the eyes and the functioning and the state of the eyes. And of course, we can work with light and energy and accelerate the processes to improve our vision. And all of it has to go hand in hand with the change on behaviors and habits, how we use our eyes, how we look into the world. And then it becomes an automated process to see well and to see better every day. So this is how I've structured the way I teach natural vision improvement. Yeah, and it has had different kinds of influences. And of course, all of us are standing on the shoulders of giants, and we have inherited a lot of what we teach and what we share. So anyway, the introduction developed into something else, I guess. So where do you want, how do you want for us to take it from there? How do you want?
Thank you so much also for your vulnerability and your sharing of your story, because there's always, you know, emotional things in there too, as I can only imagine, you know. So yeah, no, thank you so much. And I think like you said, some teachers are more mechanical, some teachers are more on the mental level. Bates was really, I don't know, he gave it a percentage, but he was like basically focused on the mental, emotional aspects, you know, like, because the relaxation, if your mind isn't relaxed, then your eyes and your body cannot relax. And I think we all teach that. Sometimes like you have physical level as a level 1, because sometimes, or I feel like for most people, that's the easier way to initially feel the relaxation and feel the difference. And then before you start here from the top down. But yeah, we are really interested in this emotional level. This is kind of what I wanted you to talk about today is, you know, like, and I think it's basically based on the Martin Brofman's work and other things you've studied, but really share a little bit about the personalities and how our personality or character or whatever, or the emotions that led to that. I think this is a fascinating topic. And if you can just take it away and kind of share and maybe go for the common, like nearsightedness, astigmatism, farsightedness. And if you have some kind of release at the end, that would also be great. If that's, we didn't discuss this ahead of time. So if there's something you can lead us through, but and then maybe eye disease if there's something, but I want you to kind of figure out what you think is most important. But those are usually the common 3, right? Nearsighted, farsighted, astigmatism in terms of the refractive errors. And then maybe, is there something related to disease? Yeah, that's it. So.
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. Dr. Bates was focused on this mental, emotional level. And current research also confirms his intuitions and hypotheses and the research that he carried, like, for example, the polyvagal theory of Dr. Burks from the University of Illinois. He talked about it, published about it in 1995. So it's confirming neurophysiology, neurosciences are confirming some of the mechanisms that Bates found, and going more into details. And before we had those theories, there's been also, particularly with myopia, there's been extensive research. Like, for example, Charles Kelley did his, and Martin Brofman started his work, taking Charles Kelley as a basis. So that's, I always like to mention Charles Kelley. He did a PhD on the psychological factors in myopia at the New School for Social Research in collaboration with the University in Columbia as early as 1958. And more or less at the same time, Fox was publishing another PhD called The Functional Factors in Myopia. It was a PhD done at the University of California in Los Angeles, UCLA, also in 1958. And a little bit later, also Caroline Zeiger published another PhD called A Psychological Approach to the Improvement of Myopia in the University of Colorado in 76. So there's been a number of researchers talking about this. I'll mention another one before we dive into Brofman, because I think it's a really interesting and surprising research, and that's the one done in this case by two optometrists, or at least it was published in the Journal of the American Optometric Association. Their names are Martin Birnbaum and Kelley. They published this in 1996. And the article is called Visual Function in Multiple Personality Disorder. And what they found was very, very interesting. And that is for people who have multiple personality disorder, and I'm going to exaggerate, taking very too stereotypical images. I know it doesn't work like that, but let's say that somebody part of the time appears as Napoleon and part of the time appears as Buddha. Like has two very different personalities. So when he's showing up as a Napoleon, he may be nearsighted. And when he's showing up as Buddha, not at all. And this has been very surprising for the standard beliefs about myopia and other refractive errors and other visual troubles. That is, there's the common belief that this is something that is genetic. But if somebody who has different personalities show the symptom or not, depending on the facet of personality that is apparent, then it means that the symptom has more to do with the personality or the level of stress or the held emotions than with anything else. Or at least this article goes very much into that direction. So talking about Brofman and Charles Kelley, if you give me a couple minutes more before we dive into talking about each symptom. So the main idea behind Charles Kelley's work, so Charles Kelley studied psychology, and he was, on the one hand, he improved his eyesight, his vision from myopia, once more, working with Margaret Dars-Corbett, which was a direct disciple of Dr. Bates, and one of the big diffusers of the method. She was an educator and found a way to teach it very well, had a very successful practice in LA, where you live, worked with a lot of famous actors, and had to go through controversies also and trials during her life. And that's why Aldous Huxley published the book, The Art of Seeing, also to do the state of the art, but also to support Margaret Dars-Corbett. So anyway, Charles Kelley also worked with her and cured his myopia. And he was studying psychology, and he became acquainted with the works of Wilhelm Reich. And he decided to put together William Bates's theories and Wilhelm Reich's theories. And probably I should have taken a little party balloon. Usually I have one around, but I guess I don't. Anyway, you'll have to use your imagination. So one of the main ideas, not the only one, but one of the important ideas that Bates put forward was that when there are refractive errors, let me go get it. There. It's going to be easier. I like to have the balloon. So
it's easier to demonstrate, right? It's like
so we're told that a myopic eye is an eye that is too long. So then the refraction appears before the retina. That's why the myopic person can focus near but not far away. Hyperopic eye is an eye that is too short, and so the refraction appears after the retina, so the person that is hyperopic can focus far away but not near, and the person with astigmatism has, the cornea is irregular. It looks more like an American football than a soccer or a basketball ball. It's not round, it has some kind of deformation. And so the refraction appears partly before or in the retina or after. So lines appear distorted and there's no focus. And of course there's presbyopia also, but we'll keep it apart for the moment. And one of the ideas that Bates advanced that was absolutely genius is to say, okay, if the eye is too long, what if the reason why it is too long, it's because the oblique muscles that go around the eyeball are actually making it too long. And when you relax them, well, the eye can again focus near and far. And what if the reason why the hyperopic eye is too short is because the straight muscles are actually keeping it flat? And when these muscles relax, then the eye can have, again, the capacity to focus near and far. And what if astigmatism is actually a function of the straight muscles having irregular tensions, and that's what's creating the distorted cornea that takes this shape of a football, American football. And well, if he was right, then when you relax these muscles, it's possible to focus clearly again. And that's the experience that we all have with our students and people who participate with us. So it looks like he was right. So William Bates is telling us that the refractive errors, myopia, hyperopia, presbyopia, astigmatism, and presbyopia, it would be as well, but with tension in the ciliary muscles that are the ones that control the shape of the crystalline, this natural lens that bulges up when we want to focus near and stays flat when we want to focus far away. So if the refractive errors are a function of tension in the muscles, then what is the solution? The solution is relaxation. Okay, so that's why at least it's the key principle. There's others, but relaxation is like a key principle of the Bates method and of natural vision improvement. So this on the one hand. And on the other hand, what does Wilhelm Reich say? As a psychologist, a psychiatrist, a doctor, a psychiatrist that was a disciple of Freud, so became a psychanalyst and then detached from Freud and had other lines of research. Well, what Wilhelm Reich says, among other things, in his bioenergetic approach is that when we have non-solved emotions and tension, this emotional tension is stored in the body as muscle tension. And when a person has the same emotion over and over and over, and is suppressing and suppressing and suppressing over and over and over these emotions, well, they actually create, and I'm not going to find maybe the precise term in English because I usually talk about this in Spanish or French, and so I'm maybe doing a triple translation. So you end up developing like an armor, a muscle armor on you, because well, if you've had the same tension for decades, well, it actually even changes your body structure, how you hold yourself, how you walk, how you move, because of how the tensions are organized in your body. And so what did Charles Kelley do? Well, he thought, okay, William Bates is telling me that myopia and hyperopia and astigmatism and presbyopia are a function of muscle tensions. And Wilhelm Reich is telling me that these muscle tensions could have an emotional origin and that they become a constant tension because the emotion that is repressed or suppressed or not digested is constant. So what happens when an emotion or a way of suppressing emotions is constant? That is what we call personality. We have a trait of personality of always being afraid or always being anxious or always being angry or et cetera, et cetera. So Charles Kelley was the first, to my knowledge, to hypothesize in a more detailed way that behind each eye symptom, there could be a specific set of emotions creating it. And he started with this Reichian approach. And what Martin Brofman did was take the hypothesis of Charles Kelley and extend them. And he worked for 35 or 40 years with people who had vision problems. And he started to see patterns and correlations of when a person develops not only myopia, hyperopia, astigmatism, and presbyopia, but when a person develops glaucoma or cataracts or retinal detachment or floaters or sensitivity to the light or whatever, there seems to be a common pattern on the kind of stress or the kind of suppressed emotion that was there at the time when the symptom appeared. And I had the fortune, well, this was the model, the method that I was studying 5 years before I had the third time vision problems. And I had the fortune not only to have been studying now for 20 years, but to work side by side with Dr. Martin Brofman for seven years, the 7 last years of his life. I translated all of his workshops in Spain, and and it was a privilege and an honor. So I got to know his model quite into detail, and I've done then from the University of Toulouse and from a sociological perspective, also research to reconfirm with other methods if these correlations and these associations would hold. And what I found was that he really did a very, very good job. What we found in our research at the university that I've done with another colleague, Anita Meidani, she's a sociologist of the body and health, is that 82% of people, when you ask them when their first symptoms started and what was going on in their life at that time, 82% will spontaneously mention something stressful. 6% more will say, no, nothing particular. My father died. Nothing strange. I moved to another country. No, I cannot really see what happened. I lost my job. So interesting. They're like not finding out anything, but it's very obvious that something difficult happened at that time. So if we add them, 88% of people would be mentioning something stressful at the time that the eyesight declined. And the 12% remaining, we cannot know for sure. Maybe something stressful happened and they don't remember, or maybe they're the exception to the rule and there was nothing going on. But anyway, if we just consider that this emotional root cause works for 88% of people, it's huge. It really is massive. And if going into the exploration of what happened and changing their perspective and releasing the emotion and the tension can make a shift in consciousness and a shift in inner and outer clarity, well, then we are facing a very, very powerful tool. I don't say that it will work in 100% of the cases, but even if it works for 70% of the people or 70% of the cases, well, we really have found something that's amazing and powerful. So again, Martin Brofman developed detailed much more like what emotional strain or stress seems to be correlated with what symptom. And he gave us a map that is quite easy to follow and quite clear. And if you want, we can dive into that now and explain about the different symptoms. Okay, maybe we can start with myopia because it's the most common and current symptom. So we're going to use metaphors. So let's say that this is my personal space, yeah? And like this is my personal space. And with myopia, when we are nearsighted, we see well clear, but we don't see well, near, but we don't see well far away. So we could say that we are withdrawing our energy. We are seeing near us. We are getting away from the world that when we develop myopia, we see as a threatening world. So the person who develops myopia at the time when it happens is looking into the future with fear, with insecurity. And myopia tends to happen when there is a change in life that the person was not ready for. Myopia appears more often in childhood, but not only. And so what are the typical events in childhood that make myopia appear? Well, the one event that is historically the jump start for myopia becoming a thing was going to school. There's another colleague of ours, Maurizio Cagnoli, an Italian sociologist, also by the way, who reminds us that myopia has a very clear starting point in history, and that is the moment where in Prussia, today Germany, school was created as a compulsory thing for all the kids. And that's the moment where myopia started jumping up. But there's other moments in childhood where myopia starts. Another one, maybe surprising, but there's also important correlations there, is when a brother or sister is born and all the attention of the parents go to the next sibling and the child is like, Now, do they love me? They don't. Are they going to pay attention on me or not anymore? So yeah, going to school, a brother or sister is born, parents are discussing a lot, don't have harmony, or parents divorce, a parent loses a job, they have to move to another city or apartment or country, the grandmother dies. These kinds of events are correlated with with myopia appearing in childhood. Also, every time there's a change in the study cycle, like going from school into middle school, or from middle school into high school, or from high school into university, or ending university, or starting a job, all these changes of cycles are also associated with the appearance of myopia. Also, when puberty starts and our body starts to change, our hormones start to change, and we enter the politics of attraction. Am I attracted or not? Is he or she attracted or not? And this creates a specific set of tensions and insecurities for people. Well, that's another moment where myopia can appear. And there's another moment that is specific for women, and that is when the politics of attraction, yes. and that is when women are pregnant. If that pregnancy is something that puts the woman into a place of insecurity, of fear. So with the first child, or with the child number n, that was a n plus one too many of what the woman might have thought could handle. So the pregnancy is also a moment where myopia appears. So you see, myopia is an adaptive response of the body to an environment that has changed in a way that the person was not yet ready for. So then people who develop myopia often, as a compensating strategy, because of feeling that insecurity or that fear about this changing situation, they tend to become very organized, very controlling, like doing, so now I'm lacking my words. In Spanish, it's very easy because there's like several words that mean organized and cautious, that all of them start with pre. So like they're planning things in advance before they're even relevant. And so a person that develops myopia often may think about 100,000 potential negative futures that he or she should be ready for. And of course, that's mentally exhausting because there is no 100,000 futures, there's only one. And so you're wasting a lot of time and mental capacity on many things that will never happen. So for people to let go of myopia, so first, and this is for all the symptoms, it's useful for you to remember when in your life the myopia started. When did the eye symptoms start? And remember what was going on in that time of your life, what was happening, and what was it that you might have felt afraid or insecure about. And when you find that thing and you can notice that, well, you're maybe 10, 20, I don't know how many years after, and clearly you survived that situation, so you can trust yourself and you can trust life. So you probably don't need to be so, what's going to happen? And you can probably let go of this planning in advance or foreseeing things and being cautious and being so organized, and just focus on what's relevant in the present moment. Let the future, it'll come anyway, but focus on being present in the present. And when you're present in the present is the present. So yeah, to be in the present and to congratulate yourself for your capacity that you've had to handle life. And so to have a higher trust in yourself and a higher trust in life. Those would be like the antidotes for myopia, for nearsightedness. I see Pete that says, when I started high school in 9th grade, I was 14. Well, Pete, you can ask yourself what happened at that time in your life that you might have been scared or afraid or insecure about, or if there was some kind of change. And you see that clearly you're beyond that and things ended up going well. I mean, you're here with us. with presbyopia, which is also about myopia, before we go into presbyopia, it's impressive how myopia has increased in Asia in the last years. Like in one generation, there's countries where myopia went from 50%, which is already like huge, into over 90%. Like myopia has become the norm, like the normal people, meaning the more frequent way of seeing that people have in those countries is through these filters of fear and insecurity. So besides wearing the glasses, we can also ask ourselves, what does it do to the collective consciousness when almost everybody in a society is looking life being afraid and being insecure? And we can also say that in the past couple of years, since COVID and the pandemic started, myopia has increased a lot. And we can understand several reasons why. Of course, there's staying more at home and having less sunshine and looking more into computers and doing more work near with our eyes. But there's also this fear and insecurity that's been going around for the last couple of years with the virus, with health, with the economy, with seeing or not seeing our beloved ones, etc., etc. So we can understand also emotionally that vision problems have increased in the last couple of years. And I see that people are noticing that their myopia started when, okay, you were bullied to the point of having to leave the Catholic school you were attending to go to a public school where you didn't know anyone. So that's a huge change. I mean, for a person in 9th grade, that's a huge change. Myopia started after I started watching a lot of television. Okay. Laura moved to Canada when I was 10. Okay. I remember when I was in grade school and I had been teased terribly by several other children due to my developing early in life. So you can, some of you are pointing to situations in which it would be perfectly understandable that you would have felt insecurity or fear, or that you would be worried or concerned. That's a lot to take. So if you are the parent of a child that's developing myopia, maybe besides taking the child to the ophthalmologist, one thing that you can do is be interested in what's going on in the life of that child and find ways to support whatever process this boy or this girl is going through that gives them more certainty and security and support and trust and confidence. And then maybe it's not even necessary to have to resort to the glasses. Because the thing that happens also is that once you have the glasses, now you see clearly a situation you didn't want to see in the first place. So then the myopia has to become stronger and it becomes progressive. Okay, I'm talking a lot about myopia and there are other symptoms and I don't know how much time we have here, but probably want to hear about others. Yeah, let's send a hug to it.
You just go as long as you need to. I know, I think this is fascinating and I think everybody loves to hear this and learn more about this. So don't worry about the time.
Okay, yeah, and hugs to everyone who suffered in childhood and was going through hard stuff that ended up becoming myopia as a compensating, adaptive response to the situation. So yeah, when we see people who've had or who have myopia, we can be interested about what happened and support them. And when that support arrives, maybe the myopia is not necessary. And the best is that not only we see clearly, but the person has well-being, is balanced and is happier. This is also why I love to work with these tools, because they not only correct the eyesight, but they yield into a person being more happy and more balanced and have more well-being. And probably it's one of the reasons why a lot of the students that come to my classes say that my course is so transformative, because it's not just about seeing clearly outside, but it makes big changes on the inside. And it's really beautiful. So here are some ideas about myopia, about presbyopia. If we go back to this metaphor.
Quickly, can you also differentiate between presbyopia and hyperopia? Because you mentioned that in the beginning, if there is a difference, and if not in this personality method, then that's fine. But I'm curious because I have my own notice that what I notice and experiences too. So anyway, take it away. Just curious.
Well, yeah, so let's continue with hyperopia then. So if we go to the eyeball, myopia occurs when the eyeball is too long, and Bates would say that it's because there's too much tension in the oblique muscles, and hyperopia happens when the eyeball is too short, and Bates would say it's because there's tension in the straight muscles. With hyperopia, I have read with Brofman, but not only, but also I have found in the empirical research that I have done, two kinds of responses. One of them, so the person who has myopia, nearsighted, short-sighted, freezes, like stays inside, hides. Yeah, that's the metaphorical movement that myopia does. With hyperopia, the persons can focus far away but cannot focus near. So the movement is the opposite, is going outside. So sometimes behind hyperopia, there is also fear, there is also insecurity, but the adaptive response, instead of hiding, is running away. Yeah, is the, you know, the flight, freeze, flee. Am I pronouncing it well in English? Anyway, so the response to that situation that creates insecurity or fear is to run away, to find the exit door, to go elsewhere so that you can be safe elsewhere. Yeah, fight or flight, it's actually fight, flight, and freeze. So the myopic response is freezing, and the hyperopic response is running away, is the flight. Yeah. So with people with hyperopia, then the idea is to again go back to the moment where the hyperopia appeared. What was going on at that moment of your life? What was the adaptive response? What happened in that situation? And if the person has developed a trait of running away, well, maybe they keep doing that in their life when it's not necessary anymore. And it may be people who change jobs a lot, or who go to live to a different place a lot, or also sometimes they find it dangerous because they find it dangerous to stay in one place or stay in one thing. They can find dangerous to stay in one relationship. So sometimes they have a bit of a difficulty to establish deeper, intimate relations. And so the idea for these people is to make sure that they can find, to be present, something safe that they can do, that they can be safe while staying, while being present in the situation and in the present. Yeah, so somebody is saying, I can relate to running away as a far-sighted child. Yeah, so this is one of the responses. The other one that I've also read about, I found it a little bit less empirically, but I've also found it somewhat, is some reaction of anger. And anger is an emotion that is expressed outwardly. So this would be the metaphor with hyperopia, but I tend to find more correspondences with the first one that I mentioned. Okay, so myopia, you freeze, hyperopia, you run away. Now with presbyopia, the tension is in the ciliary muscles. I cannot represent it because it would be inside of the eye. It should be, it would be the muscles that surround the lens, the crystalline. With presbyopia, if we go back to this metaphor again, we're going to use it differently. They also call presbyopia the syndrome of having arms too short, because you cannot put the things you want to look at far enough to see them. Like you have to put your phone further away, your book further away to read it. So again, what are we doing with our energy with presbyopia? We're putting it outwards in the world. Presbyopia, on the contrary to myopia, tends to appear in later stages in life. Yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, nowadays we're told that it is normal. Normal only means statistically frequent. It doesn't mean compulsory, okay? So it is normal to have presbyopia after 40. And that is true in Western societies, in Europe, in North America, but it's not necessarily true everywhere in the planet. So it's not a biological determination. And as I said, 20 years ago, it used to be 50, the normal age to start having presbyopia. Now, let me mention, I want to be precise with this. certain societies where presbyopia is almost non-existent. So in China, up into the 90s, presbyopia was really, really rare. And also the old people in Vilacamba in Ecuador, or Hansa, the Hansa tribes in the Himalayas, and the Hansa ones are really, really known for having very long lives. China also. Actually, in these societies, there's almost no presbyopia at all. And probably we all know an old lady that, despite being very old, is still able to put the thread through the needle without glasses. I know a few of them. And why are they the exception to the rule? So that's interesting. And of course, we could talk about maybe the people in Ecuador and the Himalayas also have a life that is more outdoors, that is more rural and not so much technology and screens, etc. But if we take it from this psychosocial perspective, we can also see how being elderly is considered in these societies and compare it and see what personal, psychological, emotional experience it is, or it gives to the people to be an elderly person in the Hansa or the people in Ecuador or in China until the 90s, and what's the experience in the Western societies. And what we find in Western societies that is very contrasting to these other societies is that as we advance in age, we have less and less options. Some people love their work and they're forced into retiring. In different societies, retiring is compulsory after a certain age. And then if you want to buy a new house and you go to the bank, maybe the bank is not going to give you the loan because you don't have a horizon long enough to pay it back. And well, maybe you had the children or you didn't have them, but it's not like you're going to choose to become a mother or etc., etc. And then some people who give a lot of importance to their aesthetics, they look at themselves in the mirror and they start seeing all kinds of signs of aging, and they don't want to see that. And in these societies where as we get older, it looks like we're not useful anymore, or technology goes too fast and your grandchild knows how to use the phone and you can barely answer it. It looks like things are not as they used to be. And you can find people talking in terms of, in my times, things blah, 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 blah. And it's interesting, if you're alive, these are your times too. I mean, so the look with presbyopia very often is looking into the past as if the most interesting parts of our lives are already behind. We already got married, or we didn't, or we divorced, or we didn't, we bought the house, or we didn't, we accomplished whatever we wanted with our professional life, or we didn't, but it's as if we're lacking options now. So the way we look to the past is either with anger, why did he do this to me, or why did she do this to me, or with regret, why didn't I do this, or why didn't I do that, or with nostalgia, I wish I was still living that. So with myopia, the look is towards the future with fear, insecurity, worry. With presbyopia, the look is into the past with regret or anger or nostalgia or guilt. And when we look at these other societies, China until the 90s, the Hansa people, these people in Ecuador, what we see is that the elderly are considered the wise people that everyone looks up to ask for advice. They have a very high position in society. Everybody's keeping the best place for them. They're treated with respect, etc., etc. So the experience of self-worth is very different in one of these societies or what we can live here. So the question when you have presbyopia, and so when the people around you and you don't look at you and don't see you as valuable, as worthy, it's very easy to lose your own self-worth. And so if you don't feel that you're worthy and you're not the star in your film anymore, then what do? You start giving your energy to the new stars of the film, your children, your grandchildren, your partner, your neighbor, the kids in Africa, but you tend to give your energy away. So the antidote for presbyopia in this perspective would be first to get your energy towards yourself again and to put yourself again at the center of your life, and to make sure that that you let the rest of your life be the best of your life. You need to make your life interesting and put yourself at the center. And so maybe, yeah, you had kids or you didn't have them, but maybe you always dreamed of practicing ballet and you never had the time to do so. And maybe you're not going to become a star in the theater world, but you can dance ballet because you love it and you don't care if it's useful for others or not, but you just do it because you're so important that you deserve to do something that you enjoy. And I mentioned ballet, for example, but some people have been wanting to paint for ages and they never took the time to do it. So maybe it's the moment in life to get back to all those passions that were staying in a drawer, and now you have the time to do it. And another thing that's also important as an antidote for presbyopia is what we could call positive selfishness. So how does positive selfishness work? Well, person with presbyopia probably has been giving away the energy to others. Well, now we have to apply the antidote. So the idea is to start first with me, okay? In terms of priorities. After, me. Following that, me. And if there is anything left, it's for me. So of course I'm exaggerating, but you see, there needs to be a compensating mechanism. So you need to put yourself first and leave other people with their responsibilities of their lives, yeah? That each of them takes care of themselves, and eventually we can meet to share a nice moment together, but let people with their own lives get responsible for them and just put yourself at the center and take care of you. So this is really important. So we mentioned myopia, hyperopia, presbyopia, and there is still astigmatism. So we said with astigmatism, there's irregular tensions in the straight muscles, and it creates distorted lines. What Brofman and I and others have found behind astigmatism is confusion, lack of clarity in your own priorities, in your own values. And I don't mean that in the sense of freedom, equality, justice, but more what is really your priority. No wonder that I had developed astigmatism in my early 30s. I mean, I'm talking about all these symptoms that I have experienced them, except hyperopia, all the others I've experienced. So I can also relate to the moments in my life where I had them and what I was going through and why they appeared. And for me, it makes sense. So with astigmatism, there is confusion, there is lack of clarity. And the easiest way to express it is that you have lost yourself. You have lost sight of yourself. You have betrayed yourself. And an example that we could give, well, we just passed the holiday season, and for many people, they were celebrating Christmas, and they were, others not, but those who were, probably they were exchanging gifts and having presents and stuff. And so let's imagine a family, they have a kid, and the kid knows that Santa is the parents. So because, well, at this time they bring the kid to the shop, and there's a huge store with all kinds of games and toys and stuff. And they tell the kid, well, you've behaved so well this year, and you already know that Santa is us, that we'd rather have you choose your own gift. So take whatever you want. And the child immediately says, a red bicycle that's calling, bring me home, bring me home. And instead of running into the bicycle and say, I want the bicycle, I want the bicycle, something inside the child says, wait, maybe there's something more interesting. At that moment, the child is not trusting this inner guidance, this intuition, this thing that makes the heart sing. And so they keep looking into the shop until they find an up-to-date encyclopedia and the child chooses the encyclopedia because he thinks, okay, if I choose the encyclopedia, I'll do good in school, and they're going to think that I'm very responsible and I'm a very good student. And so my teachers and my parents and everybody is going to reward me for that. And the problem is not that he chooses the encyclopedia to get the reward of social acceptance and approval. The problem is that the child ends up believing that that's what he or she wanted in the first place, where the call was for the bicycle to have fun. See, so this is what happens with astigmatism. So again, the question would be, when during your life did astigmatism appear? What were the choices that were presented to you, and what did you choose? And apparently at that time you betrayed yourself and you chose something that was not a reflection of your true desires, your true heart's desires, but maybe something that would get you approval or acceptance, or that you would fit more in what was expected from you. I know that for me that this was completely true. I mean, the moment I said that maybe one day I would quit the university, it was a catastrophe at my parents. Like my father was almost metaphorically going to cut his veins. No, I'm exaggerating, but it was a big deal if I would leave the university. So they were really expecting that from me. Anyway, so if you've developed astigmatism at some point in time, you can look again, if you betrayed yourself in order to fit into some expectation that maybe got you approval, but it's not really who you are. It's not really what your heart wishes. And so if you want to see clearly again, it's important that you get back into your own truth and that you satisfy your heart, your soul, your inner being, call it however you prefer. So we've talked about the four most common the four refractive errors: myopia, hyperopia, presbyopia, astigmatism. And we could talk for hours about the other symptoms. But how about, go ahead.
This was super interesting because when I went through my horrible marriage and final divorce, that's when I developed astigmatism. And I always felt I was bending over backwards to make this work. And when I finally, released that, and then shortly afterwards got into vision improvement, it went away. But to this day, I sometimes say when I feel overwhelmed, somebody posted on YouTube, anxiety sets in for me when I'm giving too many choices. I have that too, where too many choices, and then I feel like it's flaring up in my right eye because it's like the wanting, like, what do I really want? And then I get confused. And so I can absolutely relate to this. I just got a beautiful, these bands. I love these bands. They're called wish beads, and you put your little wish inside on a roll of paper. And I got these all, like 4 of them today for me, but one of them is also trusting my intuition and, really knowing, because deep down in your gut, you really know, right? Mm-hmm. I love the story with the bicycle and the boy, because then your mind's like, no, but that makes more sense. Or no, I should do that because that XYZ, versus trusting ourselves. So that was really beautiful. I don't know if you have any last words on eye diseases. I know we're way over time. I'm just looking, and there was a question in the YouTube chat. Do cataracts have an emotional component? And I know we cannot go much longer, but it's maybe cataracts is such a common thing now that we can touch on that, and then we're going to close it for today. So
before we go into cataracts, can I suggest also a tool for getting in touch with your intuition? So actually, I would call it also being aware of our own body and listening to our own body reactions. Some people use like pendulums, and for me, a pendulum, what it does, it amplifies a movement that's already happening in my body. I mean, it's not something that's moving the pendulum, it amplifies this movement. And what I've observed about myself is that when I'm excited about something, of course, you'll say, you're moving it with your hand, of course, but it's not voluntary. And the pendulum is just amplifying the movement of my hand. And when I'm really not excited about something, then this doesn't happen. So the movement is in my body. And if I learn to take the clues from my body, I don't need the pendulum. Is my body expanding or is my body contracting? If my body is expanding, it's a yes. If my body is contracting, it's a no. So, and one of the places where it's easier to feel is the heart. Like you can imagine the situation, if you have a choice between two situations, A and B, you imagine yourself in situation A with all the details about that situation, and you track what's happening with your body and what's happening with your chest. Is it expanding? Is it easy to breathe? There's this sense of freedom and spaciousness, or is it contracting and becoming more tense and more difficult to breathe in situation B, for example? This works very well for me, at least. And there is also a physiological reason why the area of the heart is so clear to do this testing. And that is, if you go mentally to make the choice, like you were saying, mentally, we have lots of different voices. We have two hemispheres that think differently, and we have three layers of the brain, the so-called reptilian and the so-called limbic or mammal, and the so-called neocortex, that's the more human. And so that's at least 6 voices inside of us, because each layer of the brain thinks differently and each hemisphere thinks differently. So potentially we can have contradictory good reasons for this or that. However, there is a part of the brain that is called the insula, that is the part that makes the synthesis of all the thoughts and all the voices and all the evaluations of information. And the insula is directly connected through neurons with the heart. So what the heart is expressing is the best solution that the brain found, but it's a solution that doesn't have words, that doesn't explain, that doesn't express in logic. It expresses in these sensations and sometimes in symbols. So yeah, so if you are hesitating about a couple of things, run it through your heart, and probably your heart will tell you the best solution. And so about cataracts. Cataracts also appear with age, or and more commonly. There's some exceptions to that, and they tend to appear at a moment in life where we lose interest in life. Something that we were very excited or happy about stops happening or doesn't happen. And there are a few very typical moments for cataracts to appear. One is general, and there are a couple that are gender related. Like the one that is general for people who really love their job, their activity, their profession, and they're really looking forward for Monday so that they can go and do what they do in the world. Well, when they retire, then they lose that motivation to get out of bed. And yeah, there's nothing to look forward to, nothing to look to. Cataracts, the metaphor is if you are closing the windows of your house, like there's nothing out there to see, so you close everything. The one or the two that are gender related, some women are really looking forward to having grandchildren and spending time with their grandchildren. And what if their kids don't have kids? Or the kids have kids, but they live very far away, or the kids have kids, but they don't get along with the partner, or they don't get along with their own daughter or son, so they are kept from seeing the grandchildren. Well, for some women, that is really, dramatic, and they lose all interest in life, because that was what they were really looking forward to seeing the grandchildren and spending time with them. And the other one that is a bit gender related, and we found this particularly in Mexico, so I don't know if it applies for everyone everywhere, but in Mexico, of course, there's some of these things that are culturally related, depending on the expectations, etc., and how people are brought up and socialized. In Mexico, there's a strong correlation of starting cataracts for men when they start having problems with their prostate, for example, and their sexual life is not interesting anymore. And if they were very sex-driven or very motivated by sex, or that was a very important part of their identity as a man, their manhood, etc., well, they don't have anything to look forward to, or at least that very big thing. So when you develop cataracts, again, go back to the moment where the cataracts appeared, and think to yourself, what happened at that time? Maybe it was a change in jobs, or maybe it was, I don't know, some part of your life that disappeared or transformed. And if that happened, well, maybe there is a part of grieving that needs to be done. And grieving is sometimes necessary and healthy, but also at some point in time, you need to find something that you rejoice about and that you look forward to. And okay, so if you cannot see your grandkids, maybe you can find a way to relate to other children, or maybe you wanted to go on a trip, well, take the occasion, or we have to use our imagination to find the solutions. But with cataracts, we want to find something that's exciting to look forward to in life.
Well, thank you so much. And I know before we go, you are launching a program, and maybe just have a couple of words. And if you watch this video later, then you still have that program, but right now you're talking about January 2022. And do you want to just share a few words about your program before we come to a close here?
Sure. So yes, I'm starting a group of people who are going to who will have the opportunity to go through the ClearSight Method, my way of organizing the information and the learnings I've had with natural vision improvement. And we will start early February with a new course. And before the new course starts, what I always love to do is to share 4 free classes that are pre-recorded in video that you can attend completely for free. We usually also do lives that go with them. So in total, I don't know, 8 or 10 free classes where I'm going to be talking about different aspects of the Bates method and how I understand natural vision improvement, and sharing principles and tools and techniques and exercises so you can go along and learn and practice and see your improvement during the free class. A lot of people improve so much during the free class that, well, objective, they get to their objective and they don't need anything else. If that happens, I'm very happy. And some people, well, they realize that the thing works, but they need more. And so if they choose to, the opportunity there is also to join my class, to join my program. And then we will be working together for 6 weeks on these 6 levels that I mentioned earlier. So the physical, the nutritional, the emotional, the mental, light and energy, and habits. And so if you're interested to discover what's my take or my perspective on natural vision improvement, you can join for free to the masterclass, the free classes. And if you want to come join the course, you're very welcome to do so as you like and as you need.
Thank you so much. And I put the link to the Wake Up Your Eyes as your free lessons. You do it with the 4 videos. I usually do these 5-day experiences, but we basically, right, we know that everybody needs to kind of see for themselves, because our colleague Esther van der Werf always says, I tell people, don't believe me, don't believe somebody else, see for yourself how this works. And so I think that's your way of having a free program where people can experience those changes. And I know you also teach a lot of information and give lots of great examples in your Wake Up Your Eyes class. So I encourage everybody to sign up for that. And like Ainhoa said, you might want to continue after that with her program, the ClearSight Method, or not. Either way, but learning more. And I feel like I've been learning so much from different teachers. And this was such a wonderful presentation, Ainhoa. I know a lot of it, but I always learn something new from you. And I think this is like so I'm super grateful for you coming on today. And we will end the YouTube live. People saying this has been an excellent presentation. Yes, so basically everybody says, oh, I see exactly what has contributed to my myopia and presbyopia. So basically, everybody loved your class. So thank you so much, my Clear Vision Club people. And we have just maybe 10 more minutes on Zoom after the YouTube. So YouTube, we're gonna say goodbye here. And I will see you next Wednesday. And then Clear Vision Club, we're gonna continue a little bit longer. So let me stop the live stream. 1 second, find the button. Okay, all right, bye-bye. Okay. Bye.